Social expectation drowns us all inside. What you have should be what I want, 'cause what I have just ain't alright. The clothes I wear, the way I comb my hair, how I live, oh, I don't care.
Alhamdulillahi adha'afa ma hamidahu jami'u khalqihi kama yuhibbuhu wa yardah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad an-nabiy al-ummi wa ala alihi wa sallim taslima. Maulaya salli wa sallim da'iman abadan ala habibika khairil khalqi kullihimi wa ala alihi wa ahli baytihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana yassir wa la tu'assir wa tammim bil khair wa bika nasta'in ya fattah. Allahumma ij'alna du'atan ilayka wa ila rasulik. Allahumma faqihna fid din wa 'allimna al-Qur'an al-hakim. Rabbana zidna ilma, Rabbana zidna ilma. Allahumma ati anfusana taqwaha wa zakkiha anta khairu man zakkaha anta waliyuha wa maulaha. Allahumma ahdina wahdi bina waj'alna sababan liman ihtada. Amma ba'd. Today we are speaking about thoughts that come into our minds, and no one is free of it. The difference between getting and inviting thoughts. There is a difference. The aqlmand, the one who is aqil, intelligent, the intelligent lacks peace of mind. What is meant by that? The Honorable Maulana Thanawi, rahmatullah alayhi, wa nawwara Allahu marqadahu wa nafa'ana bi ulumihim amin, said, the intelligent, particularly the very intelligent, lack peace of mind because their mind is always occupied in thought. So they cannot experience special conditions known in the terms of the Sufis as hal and ahwal. Mufti Taqi Usmani comments on the statement of Maulana Thanwi rahmatullah alayhi, Damat barakatuhum. Normally those who are very intelligent do not get inspiration, ilham, or any other similar condition and hal. It seldom comes. Sometimes it comes. These things demand peace of mind and deep concentration. If one does not let his mind waver, then only can he get these conditions. As for an intelligent man, his mind wavers always. His mind is always wavering. If he is a scholar, if he is an alim, mufti, then he will always have a question on his mind, demanding a solution, isn't it? Some masla, some thought. An educated man will have something or other perplexing his mind, ever a worldly problem or whatever problem. This will deprive him of peace of mind, which means that he is not receptive to the foregoing conditions of ilham and the like and different ahwal. The first step, ad-darajatul ula, the first step in developing concentration. The condition, which is hal, ahwal, and different states of ecstasies and excursions of the mind, in the terms of the Sufis, excursions of the mind, and inspirations, ilhamat, are gifted. Of course, they come from Allah. These things are not the real purpose, because if you're not getting them, kashfan, ilham and karamat, then what? You will become gloomy and sad. So these things are not the real purpose. The real purpose and the objective of tasawwuf is to love Allah, to be obedient to Him, and to get closeness to Allah, and for Allah to love you. If these things come, alhamdulillah, they are gifts and they are gifted. But they are not the real objective. The mental excursions, in particular, are acquired, and a person can acquire them. Yes, these can be acquired through riyadha, through spiritual exercise and practice. He can get his mind to explore these venues. The exercise for concentration and to get these mental excursions, it goes step by step. The exercise is to look at the stars in the nightly heaven. How many of us gaze at the sky in the night, at the stars in the night? We must ponder on Suratul Mulk, where Allah talks about the skies. And let your gaze go to the sky, and return your gaze again to the sky. He can get his mind to explore these venues. The exercise is to look at the stars in the nightly heaven, and then pick up one of them. Just one star. Pick up one of them. Look at it. One star. Pick it out. Look at it. Stare at it unceasingly. Stare at it unceasingly. Do not let your eyes turn away from it. Gradually, you will not see the surrounding stars. And you will see only one star, one point. Try it. Try it. This is the first lesson to gain concentration. The eye is trained to rest on any one thing. The second step, when the eye is thus trained, the second step is to train the mind to concentrate on only one thing. No other thing can penetrate the mind. When a person achieves that, stage 1, stage 2, when a person achieves that, his mind grows a power. His mind grows a power called tasarruf, a mystical application of the mind in the terms of the Sufis. His mind grows a power called tasarruf. Sometimes this tasarruf, which he then develops, and the mind acquires it, and this power grows, this mystical application of the mind. Sometimes this tasarruf, this mystical application of the mind, carries a man to a next level. It carries him to the stage of kashf, manifestation, or the stage of ilham and inspiration. Stage 1 and stage 2. Maulana Thanwi's answer, rahmatullah alayh, to Mufti Muhammad Shafi, rahmatullah alayh. Mufti Taqi Usmani Damat Barakatuhum says, my respected father, rahmatullah alayh, would tell us often that whenever they visited Maulana Thanwi, rahmatullah alayhi, at Thana Bhawan, you see in Thana Bhawan in front of you? Aligarh, seen it? They all went to Thana Bhawan and visited the qabr and the resting place of Maulana Thanwi, and they gave him salams and things, and made little muraqabah and things. Is that a good thing? So whenever my father visited Maulana Thanwi at Thana Bhawan, Rahmatul Alayh, Maulana would depute them to write in something, maybe an essay or a fatwa or some ruling. The result would be that they would miss the opportunity to engage in dhikr, which was available to other people in the khanqa, which is the recluse, the khanqa. As you have a markaz, you also have khanqa, and you also have madrasa. 3 things: markaz, khanqa, madrasa. We must be all part of all 3. This weighed heavily on them. Everybody else going to do zikr, and they have to write essays and fatwa and all these things. For instance, Maulana Wasiullah. Maulana Wasiullah was one of the famous Khalifas of Maulana Thanwi. One of them was Maulana Masihullah from Jalalabad. And the other was Maulana Wasiullah. Was about 4 of them who were very outstanding. Maulana Wasiullah is the Sheikh, direct link to Maulana, between Maulana Qamruz Zaman and Maulana Shafali Thanwi. Maulana Qamruz Zaman, who came to our shores, he has one link to Maulana Thanwi. Very short sanad to Maulana Thanwi. Maulana Wasiullah, Maulana Thanwi. Unfortunately, we couldn't visit him. For instance, Maulana Wasiullah, Rahmatul Alayh, would be constantly occupied in dhikr and adhkar. So Mufti Shafi and his other companions were seeing that and they feeling how about that. So my father submitted to Maulana Thanwi, Rahmatul Alayh. He said, Maulana, this Wasiullah is my class fellow. He's my class fellow. This is Mufti Shafi, Maulana Wasiullah, classmates, class fellow. But you know what? He has advanced much further than me while I am nowhere. I am still nowhere, and he has advanced so much. I have no urge to do anything. I don't feel like doing anything. And he received the Persian couplet to support his plea. Maulana Thanwi, Rahmatullah Alayhi, he said, son, why does someone get Sahara, desert, wilderness? Someone gets that. And you know, in the Sahara and the desert and wilderness, there's a piece of what? Tranquility, isn't it? Country area. Even if you take a drive through the country, you feel different. He says, my son, why does someone get Sahara, desert, wilderness, and another he gets Sahar, night vigil, wakes up whole night, can't sleep, waking up whole night, sleep not coming. Continue in the commentary. Led through the stages in one right. My respected father, Rahmatullah Alayh, said that once he said to Maulana Thanwi, Rahmatullah Alayh, Maulana, praise belongs to Allah. You know what? Your company, your suhbat, has enabled me to understand the conditions of kashf, karamat, and ilham. Through your suhbat, I have understood these conditions. Unfortunately, many people, many Muslims don't even know of these terms. They don't even experience it. Through your suhbat, I understand them very well. The mind is now accustomed to recognize their insignificance, and this is the depth behind it. Although they are very great things and great gifts, but yet they are insignificant because it is not, these things are not the objective. Had they been the objective, you know how many Muslims would have feel sad and depressed? The objective is what? Obedience, ibadat, worship, love for Allah, love for loneliness, love for khalwat, isolation. The mind is now accustomed to recognize their insignificance. Because if a person goes on this path to achieve these things, then his intention is wrong. He's not even doing it to please Allah. He wants to get powers, mystical powers. So right there, he's wrong. The mind is now accustomed to recognize their insignificance, for they are not the goal and the objective. They are not the goal and objective. But sometimes you just want to experience something. And Allah has it in such a way that He does from time to time make His special servants experience some things. He does that. Hazrat Sheikh Maulana Yusuf Mutala, Damat Barakatuhum, the beloved Khalifa of Hazrat Sheikh Maulana Zakaria, told me, he says, nearly every day something happens through which Tajdeedul Iman occurs. Nearly every day something happens through which Allah strengthens His faith and revives His faith. So Maulana Mufti Shafi says here, I know they're not the goal and the objective, and I know of the insignificance, and I really know these things. He says, but what? However, sometimes I get a desire to travel through these conditions, to investigate them. He says, I get the desire sometimes to travel through these conditions, to investigate them. Maulana Thanwi, Rahmatullah alayhi, then said, what is there in these things? What you want to investigate in ilham, kashf, karamat. What is there in these things? But you know what? Yes, people like to experience something. But if you are eager, then I will let you experience them. Then one day, says Mufti Shafi, alayhi rahmah, then one day he taught my father a kind of religious exercise. And Maulana Ashraf Ali Thanwi told him, practice this tonight. After your tahajjud salat, practice this. So my father did it after his tahajjud salat. He practiced what the Maulana told him to do. Practiced it. And subhanallah, he observed strange things. Strange things he observed from alamul ghaib, from the world unseen. Kashf, manifestation. Strange things he observed. For instance, he saw Gandhi's head severed. Mahatma Gandhi was a big international figure of India. A great man he was, Mahatma Gandhi. He saw Gandhi's head severed. In other words, he saw his death. But what was amazing, during those days, Gandhi was alive. Gandhi was alive, healthy, and Pakistan had not gained independence. So Gandhi is alive, healthy. Pakistan had not gained independence yet, but he saw Gandhi's death, he saw Gandhi's head severed. But yet he saw that. Like I remember an incident with Maulana Yusuf Mutala, Damat Barakatuhum, when he was staying upstairs by Shiraz, by the house next to Locos. It was about 9 o'clock or around 9:30 one morning when he screamed out. And when I went, I said, what happened? He screamed. He said, some visitor just told him that Sufi Iqbal died. And he screamed out. And he said that sometimes when he goes on travels, some visitor always visit him. He always gets some type of news. So then I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun, because Sufi Iqbal is one of the great Khalifas of Hazrat Sheikh also. So I said, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi rajiun. So he said, no. He says, it may not mean that he's dead as yet, but I just got this news. It so happened Hazrat went back, and within 1 month had not passed, when he wrote before 1 month had passed, that Sufi Iqbal died. But at that time he was alive, healthy. but he saw it. It was informed to him before it even happened. Same thing with Mufti Shafi. Next day, the Maulana Thanwi alayhi rahma asked my father, he said, "Oh brother, tell me, did you travel anywhere? Did you travel anywhere? Did you have any mental excursions?" One is the physical excursion and one is the mental excursion. He told him what he had seen. So the Maulana then asked him if he liked more experience. You want to get some more? Or that was enough? Because he wanted to taste something of it. That was enough or you want more? And my father, Mufti Shafi, said that he was satisfied with what he had experienced just one night. That is enough. Because the purpose and the objective and goal is not these things. Because then you get too caught up in these things and you forget your goal, which is really the pleasure of Allah. And then sometimes, if you do not acquire it and you don't come to it and it's not gifted to you, you become depressed. And you should not be depressed. So this is an exercise for what? For concentration and focusing of the mind, which will lead to these ahwal. It's an exercise of looking at the stars in the night, starry night, picking one star, concentrating, focusing on that. The eye sees nothing, and then the concentration builds and builds, which leads to these things gradually. So it is jaiz, it is permissible, you could do it. But at the same time, understand what Mufti Taqi Usman is saying. He says, use the time for dhikr. Use the time for dhikr. Anyway, these things, these ahwal and conditions are inherent, but also acquired. Some of these things are within us. Man arafa nafsahu faqad arafa rabbahu, said the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. We don't know ourselves, you know. But the Nabi alayhi salam said, Man arafa nafsahu, whoever knows himself, faqad arafa rabba, he has recognized his Rabb. The marifat of your Rabb lies within recognition of your own self. So these conditions are inherent, but also acquired through some effort and through some exercises. But Maulana Thanwi, rahmatullah alayhi, said that, you know what, the time that you spend on practicing these exercises, like starting at a single star in the night and continuing and going on, he says you could spend that time in remembering Allah, in doing zikr. Because that is a useless pursuit as compared to zikr. Of course, this knowledge is a very deep knowledge. We have to understand it and absorb it. Allahumma fahimna. Ultimately, there is not the least benefit in it. But as I said, these gifts do come sometimes. And if they come, we appreciate it and we thank Allah for it. Hada min fadli Rabbi. But don't hanker after it. It's not the objective. The most you can say is that it is jaiz. If you want to do this exercise, it is jaiz. It is allowed, of course. But it is neither meritorious nor rewarding. So spend the time in dhikr. Spend the time in dhikr. If you say Subhanallah, Allah is without blemish. Allah is pure, free from all faults. Subhanallah. If you say Subhanallah once, then it fills half the pan of your scale of deeds. It fills half the pan of your scale of deeds, like the incident with Sulaiman alayhi salam and the person on the earth. Why then do you use your time in those meaningless pursuits? That's the difference between us and the people who call themselves the yogis and yoga and different practices and meditation and to achieve feats and all different things. Zikr is the objective, remember that, not concentration. Zikr is the objective, not concentration. But if you are blessed with concentration, too fine, alhamdulillah, Allahumma zid fazid. To repeat, these conditions and ahwal are acquired also, but to acquire them, the person needs to concentrate and have peace of mind. Since an intelligent man lacks peace of mind, he very seldom, he cannot acquire these conditions. Whenever anyone wrote to Maulana Tanwi, Rahmatullah alayhi, that though he engaged in zikr, he could not get concentration, the Maulana would advise him to carry on with dhikr. Even if he was unable to concentrate, carry on. Concentration is not the goal, zikr is the goal. The reason is that the aim is to make dhikr, and the involuntary conditions are not the goal. Involuntary conditions are not the goal. The intelligent cannot achieve them because he always thinking, if he's a alim, about some masala, some lugha, some words, some hadith. If he's a businessman thinking about his business, can't sleep in the night. An educationist thinking about this, about that. Look at organizing prayer, organizing the army in prayer. Sayyiduna Umar al-Faruq radiyallahu anhu said, Inni la ujahizu jaishi wa ana fi salat. Umar radiyallahu anhu is in salat, but in salat he is organizing his army in salat. Inni la ujahizu jaishi wa ana fi salat. He meant to say that while he offered salat, he was also organizing, he also organized and planned his battle forces and positions of the warriors. Planned his battle forces and positions and maqamat of the warriors in salat. This was the salat of Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu. Not every time it would happen, of course, but sometimes in salat he organizing all of them in salat. This is his salat, not the salat of one of us. In other words, if one cannot get concentration, he need not wreck his head about it. Keep up your ibadat. Keep up your worship. Do not lag behind in deeds. Do not think of deeds as useless, and do not think of any deed as insignificant. Rather, thank Allah that you are able to do it. The more you thank Him, the more you will be enabled. Keep your eyes on the opportunity. Do not look at yourself, but observe that Allah, the glorious, the majestic, has enabled you to perform a deed. May Allah help us to understand that. Do not look at yourself, but observe that Allah, the glorious, the majestic, has enabled you to perform a deed, and thank Him for that. There are many people whom He, Allah, has not inclined in this way. Some people come to masjid, Allah has given them the tawfiq to come. Some people are particular about Jamaat, Allah has given them that. If you come and you can't focus in salat, don't worry about that, but at least thank Him that He has given you tawfiq to come. Hence, begin by thanking Him, O Allah, you have favored me with ability, with the tawfiq, and inclination to do it. That is tawfiq, in other words, ability and inclination. But if you do not esteem it, but criticize it as imperfect, then you do not esteem the ability that Allah has given you. You dissing Allah's ability which He has enabled you with. The sajda that you make, putting your head on the ground, that sajda, is it your own effort? No. Rather, Allah the Exalted inclined you to do that. Hence, thank Him for making you competent to at least put your head on the ground. Do not be ungrateful, and that's why sometimes we show ingratitude for whatever ibadat we do, and we attach and say that is a waste of time and not concentration, and then slowly what happens? A person becomes more and more depressed until he starts leaving out salat. Do not be ungrateful. However, seek His forgiveness for the shortcoming in your deeds, and we have so many shortcomings. So often we should say Astaghfirullah. Deed is required. Amal is required. Neither are these conditions of kashf, karamat, ilham, neither are they the goal, nor are their involuntary forms required. Neither are the pleasant consequences the objective, nor is mental concentration necessary. What is desired is amal. Deeds and amal must be performed willingly or grudgingly. However, keep trying to grow humility and devotion in your deeds. Keep trying for that. Don't give it up. Keep trying until death. For it is a necessary fard that you try. Sometimes you only think about fard as salat and zakat and fasting. But it is fard also to keep trying for what? Humility and devotion and salat. It is fard. To achieve that, to achieve the humility is not a fard. But to keep trying for it is what? Fard. So that in spite of trying, if you do not grow humility, then you are not accountable for that. And this is such a beautiful example. First, let's look at Maulana Tanwi's words. All the way from Thana Bhawan. Rahmatullah alayhi. Maulana Tanwi goes on to say, and this is how we must deal with thoughts, because I'm sure every one of us, we get waswasa, wasawis, promptings, thoughts, all kind of things come through our head. Maulana says, the shaitan, the devil, is like a live wire. He is like a live wire that should not be touched, neither to attract nor to repulse. Neither to attract nor to repulse. The live wire should not be touched. That's how the devil is like a live wire. Otherwise it will trap you. Otherwise it will trap you. In fact, do not even approach it or look at it. Go some other way. Don't even approach it or look at it. Disregard, total disregard. This is the only remedy of evil promptings from the devil and evil thoughts. The only medicine for that. Mufti Taqi comments. Suppose that there is an electric wire before you. It is live. If someone thinks, you know what, that it should be removed from the way to allow unhindered movement. So let me move it from the way. And he touches it with that intention, then he will be trapped, electrocuted, unable to free himself. Hence, do not touch the live wire to take it or even to cast it away. Rather, make a detour and walk away from it. It is the same with the devil's promptings and the wasawis. Do not try to invite them, to attract them. Don't try to invite them. They're like a live wire. Don't try to attract them, invite them, or don't even try to repulse them like the live wire. Rather, make a detour and think of something else. Go somewhere else. Make a detour and think of something else. Ignore, totally ignore the promptings. Just ignore it, disregard, and get out of the situation. This is the only medicine. This is the only solution. There is no other remedy. These are very important words of advice. And Mufti Shafi had given an example. When you go in a dark room, don't wave your hand at the darkness and try to fight off the darkness. Light a candle. Do something else. Uncertain whether invited or involuntary. You don't know if it's invited or involuntary. Someone wrote to the Maulana that sometimes he's unable to decipher whether the evil suggestions come to him, if they come to him, or he invites them. How could he distinguish? What is the mahu al-farq? The Maulana explained that there was no need even to set a standard. No need to set a standard. In case of uncertainty, when there is a low level of certainty, it means that there is still some kind of certainty. And what about certainty? What is the masala about that? Al-yaqeenu la yazulu bi-shak. Yaqeen doesn't go away with doubt. So it must be supposed to have what? Intruded. We must understand we are not allowed at all to invite them. If such thoughts come by themselves, then that is not disallowed. But it is disallowed to fetch them voluntarily. Thus, if you are offering salat and you get thoughts involuntarily while you have your attention towards the words of salat, then this is not disallowed. But it is disallowed to think of something intentionally while you're in salat. The Honorable Maulana has often stated that it is not disallowed if thoughts invade the mind by themselves. Not disallowed. But it is disallowed to fetch them and bring them in while you're in salat. If anyone said to him, Maulana, the heart is not reconciled to salat, he would enlighten him. It is not fard, obligatory or obligatory that you put your heart in salat. That's not fard. But it is fard and obligatory that the heart reconcile with it, with the salat. In your heart, put your heart into it. Put your heart into it. But it is not binding that the result be positive. That's out of your control. If they continue to intrude in spite of your efforts, do not worry, for you will not be answerable for that. They have come uninvited. Someone asked Maulana, Maulana, there are some thoughts of which I am uncertain if they come by themselves or have I invited them. Now may I know the truth? The Maulana answered that it was not necessary to know the certain. If you are uncertain and only have an inkling of certainty, then you must take them as an intrusion. Take them as an intrusion. Al-yaqeen la yazulu bi-shak. If you are certain that you have invited them, then shun them and seek forgiveness. But if you are satisfied that the thoughts have come by themselves, then don't worry too much about that. Take it as an intrusion. Similarly, when you do not worry but believe that they have come by themselves, occupy yourself in the voluntary. Some things are involuntary. What we have to do is occupy ourselves in the voluntary. In brief, the worry that persists in our minds, as it should, about our salat being disturbed by different thoughts, and whether our salat is accepted or not, the principle is to continue to do the task that is within our ability and that which is voluntary. We must constantly have our mind on that and never neglect it. Just as salat is to be offered and it is fard, so too we must observe humility and khushu that is also fard in salat. And what's the dalil of it? The Quran says, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم قد أفلح المؤمنون قد أفلح المؤمنون الذين هم في صلاتهم خاشعون. Successful indeed are the believers who have khushu in their salat. So to try for khushu, devotion, concentration, humility, that is fard. These verses do not link prosperity and falah to salat alone, but to humility. To humility. Thus we cannot ignore it. Thus we cannot ignore it. Rather it is obligatory, it is fard to acquire it, to strive for it to the best of our ability, that is fard. And many of us, we don't make that effort. Just as the postures of standing, qiyam, ruku, sijda are all fard in salat, so too is obligatory therein to observe khushu. and to try for it. It is necessary to try to acquire it. And sometimes I say something, and sometimes people don't like it, but I have found it to be true over the years that when one wants to test his level of salat and how much of khushu he has received in his salat, you must check and see how many times you yawn in your salat. And then you will see, because sometimes the yawn come involuntary, you're not accountable for it. But when a person reaches a level where he doesn't yawn anymore in his salat, if you are in front, if your case is called in the public court, magistrate court, Larry Ali, the way the policers call it, and in front of the magistrate, you stand in front of him, and then the prosecutor come forward with the charge. And you see anybody yawning there? There's a kind of, the heart has been kind of beaten fast in the court. And here we are in Allah's court, standing before Allah, but yet in every rukun, in qiyam, yawning 4 times, in ruku, 2 times, sajda, every movement is a yawn. And worst of all, when you make a noise with that yawn, when you make a noise with that yawn, shaitan has laughed at you. One of the miracles of the Prophet ﷺ is that he never yawned. What state of humility? How may one try? Often minds go to the limit of exaggeration. This is another mistake. Sometimes minds go to the limit of exaggeration. When they think of humility and when they think of khushu, sometimes they go too far. They picture Hazrat Junaid Baghdadi, they picture his salat, or Khwaja Moinuddin Chishti Ajmiri, from which came what? The Chishti Silsila. And they target that kind of khushu and humble state of mind. They target that when they stood for salat. These people, when they stood for salat, they were like lifeless sticks, and their hearts allowed no intrusion. There was absolutely no intrusion in the heart. No, it is not necessary to achieve that standard. You could try for it, but not necessary to achieve that. But what is best? Rather stick to your limits. Stick to your limits and try to be humble within your capabilities. Don't try to portray who you are not. Because then you become a four-stripe sheikh, or a four-stripe wali, or a four-stripe alim, or a four-stripe hazrat. You're not a hazrat, you're not a buzruk, you're not a sheikh. Be who you are. Stick to your limits and try to be humble within your capabilities. Remember, one of my sheikhs of Bangalore, Maulana Miran Sahib, Sheikh Miran Sahib used to tell us, he used to say, watch the mangoes on the tree. I always remember this advice. He said, watch the mangoes on the tree. He said, allow yourself to become like a mango that becomes full and mature and then ripe. You'll be sweet. And don't become like them small force-ripe mango, you're sour. So now we try to become a Hazrat Ji, big Buzruk Sheikh, Muraqaba. Sometimes bayan going on, khutbah going on, or nasihat going on. Watch the khatib, or at least be attentive. But you're right in front of the khatib, right in front of the person giving the bayan, and you're on in Muraqaba. Kya hai? Try to the best of your ability. Stick to your limits and try to be humble within your capabilities. Or we try, sometimes we exaggerate, and we try to imitate Sayyiduna Abu Talha, the story of Abu Talha, radiyallahu anhu, who was worried about a bird entangled in the dense trees in his garden while he was engaged in salat. When he finished praying, he was grieved deeply over letting his thoughts wander in salat. To atone for that, he gave away his garden in charity for Allah's sake. It's an Italian book. So now we try to strive for that. Listen, try to the best of your ability. Now that is a very, very high standard. Instead of taking a lesson from that, what the purpose of these things when we hear about it and when we read about it is to get a what? A lesson from it. But instead of taking a lesson from that, one gives up hope and feels dejected. That is the difference. You give up hope and say, oh God, I could never reach that stage. And then slowly, slowly, you start even leaving out salah too. Feels dejected. The result is that he does not even try to achieve the humble attitude and the khushu that is within his powers. The Honorable Maulana said that while one must keep abreast with the feats of our worthy predecessors, yes, that is admirable, so that he gains strength. By hearing about it, you get strength, and he derives a lesson. He must not imagine that he is bound to attain their station. Rather, he must recognize his limits and try to achieve the best he can within those limits. You know, it have two ayats of Quran. What is it about taqwa? What is the first ayat? Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu taqullah haqqa tuqati. And when the Rasul alayhi salam gave the tafsir of that, and the Sahabas, yani ayyudhkar wala yunsa wa ayyuta'a wala yusa. And he gave that whole, the Sahabas said, but wow, which one of us could do that? Haqqa tuqati. Then the commentators mentioned, Allah then revealed another verse, ittaqullah mastata'tum. Ittaqullah mastata'tum. Fear Allah within your own limits, according to your ability. Your taqwa might not, sometimes may not even reach the level of that taqwa. The result, the Honorable Maulana said that while one must keep abreast with the feats of our worthy predecessors so that he gains strength and derives lesson, he must not imagine that he is bound to attain their station. Rather, he must recognize his limits and try to achieve the best he can within those limits. The piety of Ibrahim ibn Adham, or when you look at this silsila of, just as how there is a chain and sanad and hadith from your teacher going right back to Rasulullah, which brings barakat. And any teacher who doesn't have that, there's no barakat in that ilm. What is the last wording in the book of Tirmidhi? What's the last wording of Imam Tirmidhi in the book? The qawl of Allama ibn Sirin. Inna hadha al-haditha deenun. This hadith is deen. Fanduru amman ta'khudhuna deenakum. Look and see who you're taking your deen from. The piety of Ibrahim bin Adham, he's in the, when you look at our mashayikh, he's in the chain, he's in the silsila. Or one may read of Ibrahim ibn Adham, rahmatullah alayhi, who was the king of Balak. He was the king of Balak, living in comfort and luxury, but he wanted to find Allah, and many things happened. Who abdicated his throne and all possessions to go out in search of Allah, because many signs happened in the palace. It's a whole long story. Many signs happened. Who abdicated his throne. One of the things is that he always, Ibrahim bin Adham, the king of Balak, always had this longing to meet Allah, always longing to find Allah, wants to find, but he's living in he's the king of Balak. His royal guards, pleasures, comfort, soft cushions, roses. So one night he heard a voice on the rooftop calling for the camel, caught somebody calling, looking for his camel. Dhallat naqatuhu. He went up. He said, "Arey bhai, kya kar rahe? What you doing here?" He said, "You don't know? I'm looking for my camel." He said, "Pagal, you're mad? You will find your camel on top here?" He said, "Who mad? You will find Allah here?" And many signs like that occurred. One time again, in his royal court, with his courtiers and his subjects, this vagrant come in with a little bundle on a stick, and he bouncing come in. Everybody watching him. Open up his little chadar and his sleeping bag and thing, and he open it up. So they say, "Arey bhai, kya kar rahe ji? Hey, chalo yahan se, chal. What you doing?" He said, "What? I'm going to sleep. I'm going and sleep." So they said, "You don't know? What place is this?" what places you going to sleep here? He said, ye to Musafir Khana hai bhai. Musafir Khana, there's a place for travelers. We come and take a rest and we go. He said, Musafir Khana, this is the king. So then he said, oh. He said, before you, who was the king here? So and so. And before him, so everybody traveling and going, you will travel and go too. So all different signs. So at the end of it all, Ibrahim bin Adham abdicated his throne and all possessions except a pillow and a bowl. And he went out to find Allah and to do some mujahada. As he was on his way, he saw a man scooping water in his hands and drinking from it. So he realized that he had no further need for the drinking bowl. So he threw it away. The man scooping water in his hands, no need for the bowl, he threw it away. Further ahead, he saw a man lying down, his head resting on his folded hands. So he realized that the pillow too was unnecessary and he cast that away. Now what high standards? Now, says Mufti Taqi Usmani Damat Barakatum, now if anyone were to read in the account of Ibrahim bin Adham alayhi rahmah a means of salvation, and he said, well, that is the means of salvation and he wants to follow that, then that would cause utter destruction. That would cause utter destruction. That's not for you and me. It is to give us strength and for us to learn lessons. The Maulana stated explicitly, Maulana Tanwi alayhi rahmah, that while we may read the accounts of our elders and our akabir, we must draw lessons from them, but we must not presume at all that salvation and falah lies in attaining that standard of life. Rather, the standard for everyone is within his ability, and Allah is Arhamur Rahimin. Do not worry about humility. Anyway, if you cannot attain the standard of khushu and humility of these great men or of the Sahaba who did not let arrows on their bodies disturb their salat, then you must continue to do that which you are bound to do. Heed the words you utter. What is that which you must do? It is to pay attention to the words your tongue utters when you offer your salat. Thus, when you recite with your tongue, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, pay attention to what you say. You must know what you say. You must know that you say Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Once you do it, you have shown humility and khushu up to your ability and must not worry to achieve higher standards. Do not behave as though you have put the switch on. When you begin with the first takbir in salat, as though you put on a switch. And now move rapidly in a mechanical fashion. Sometimes the salat so fast. Sometimes even following sometimes too. You're not reaching Darud Sharif. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. I say, but wait now. I'm not reaching Darud, boy. Do not behave as though you have put the switch on. A switch on when you begin with the first takbir in salat. And now move rapidly in a mechanical fashion through the salat till you come to the end. Not knowing what you say, where you are. You don't even know where you are. And how many rakats you have prayed. You do not even remember what you recited in the first rakat. Sometimes you don't even remember. Well, why read in the first rakat, boy? And what you don't even remember what you read in the second. This is contrary to humility. This is within your ability. You could do this. This is contrary to khushu. Khushu, humility, devotion, concentration is to try and keep the mind attentive to the words you utter with your tongue. At least pay attention to that. And when the Imam reciting, pay attention to his words. Summon your attention. Now, if you have tried and are attentive to the words you utter, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahman Ar-Rahim, then suddenly you wander off and involuntarily think of something else when you utter the next words, so your mind stray, but when you utter the next words, Maliki yawmiddin, Iyyaka na'budu wa iyyaka nasta'in. Know that the involuntary diversion is not against humility in salat, and you will not be answerable for that. That was involuntary. Provided the moment you realize the diversion, you return to the words and know the next reading that is coming. Ihdina siratal mustaqeen. Again, when you wander off, come back to it. And you know, salat is so great. Every time you wander off, what goes on? Allahu Akbar, to come back again. Allahu Akbar, come back again. Allahu Akbar. You may lose track again, but you should return the moment you realize that you have diverted. If you complete your salat in this way, then you have observed khushu. But never, never invite thoughts intentionally. Just a little, one page again. The meaning of inviting thoughts. Suppose you have a problem on your mind concerning your occupation. You say to yourself that you would tackle it during your salat. And indeed, just as you begin your salat, you also take up the problem intentionally. This action is haram and unlawful because you brought the thoughts to your mind yourself. This is not allowed. Religious thoughts are welcome. There's a difference. However, let me tell you of something important. While it is not allowed to invite purely worldly thoughts during salat, it is allowed, not saying that it is preferable, you know, but it is what? Allowed to intentionally draw thoughts of obedience and worship, which is not a sin. For instance, a scholar of religion may vex his mind during salat to solve some juristic poser, and it kind of tackling in his brain some masala, like how Umar radiallahu anhu fixing up all the armies, and inni lawjahhizu jayshi wa ana fi salah. He may do it intentionally. Maulana Tanvi rahmatullah alayhi said that it is not unlawful. It is not unlawful, though it is disallowed to invite thoughts that are about anyone other than Allah. Although that thoughts that are for Allah alone are not included in thoughts about other than Allah. The action of Sayyiduna Umar radiallahu anhu in organizing his troops mentally, it's happening in his mind mentally, during salat is of the same nature. That's the dalil for it. He was doing that for the sake of Allah. So it's deen, it's obedience. Organizing for jihad, and it is not unlawful. Thinking of a ruling while in salat. Thus it is allowed for a scholar and an alim to think of a ruling while he's offering salat. But you know what? But you should not do it. It's not saying that this is what you should do, but sometimes it happens, it's allowed. But the preferable thing is, of course, to focus only on Allah. But he should not do it. For there is an occasion for everything. لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ مَقَامٍ. There is an occasion. So although it is allowed, he never said preferable mustab, it's allowed, but he still should not do it and try not to do it. For there is an occasion for everything, and the occasion now is what? Allahu Akbar. We try not to think of something else while we pray. We must have our attention on the obedience we are engaged in. However, if it becomes necessary to do so, then it is not disallowed. If it becomes necessary to do so, then it is not disallowed. Imam Ghazali and his brother, as we close, hear the story of Imam Ghazali and his brother, Rahmatullah alayhima. Imam Ghazali, Rahmatullah alayhi, was a great Sufi, a great mystic, a great alim, I have no doubt about that, a great alim, and a great faqih, and a great jurist. He had a brother, Imam Ghazali Rahmatullah had the name of Muhammad. In fact, for 10 generations, in ascending order, everyone was Muhammad, Muhammad, Muhammad ibn Muhammad, Muhammad ibn Muhammad ibn Muhammad Ghazali. All of them, 10 generations, Muhammad, Muhammad, Muhammad. They loved the name Muhammad. His brother was Ahmad Ghazali, Rahmatullah alayhi, who was only a Sufi. and had not as much mind towards the known sciences like Imam Ghazali. Imam Ghazali was an alim. Imam Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi used to lead the congregational salah. But his brother Ahmad Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi did not pray behind him. One day his mother asked him why he did not offer salat behind your brother Imam Ghazali. He said only that he prayed his salat on his own. He said, I just prefer to pray my salat on my own. His mother insisted that he should offer salat behind the Imam Ghazali. Pray it behind your brother. Accordingly, when Imam Ghazali rahmatullah alayhi stood up to lead the salat, the jamaat, his brother stood behind after forming the niyat and intention. However, in between, he gave up praying and annulled his intention and left the salat. When his mother asked him for the reason, he said, Ma, I can't offer salat behind him as a imam. Because even during salat, he thinks up of some masala, he's thinking of some rulings on highs, menstruation, lokia, some kind. How am I going to offer salat behind him? But she too was no ordinary mother. She said, Ya Abdallah, O slave of Allah, if he solves questions, and it's amazing sometimes you can't solve a masala and it comes to you in salat. If he, O slave of Allah, if he, your brother, solves questions of that nature during salat, then those are questions of Sharia, which is obedience and worship. Don't you understand? And while he doing that, but while you were engaged in salat, you were finding faults with him, and that going through your mind in salat. While you were engaged in salat, you found faults with him and were thus doing a forbidden and haram thing in your salat. Now tell me, whose salat is better, his or yours? What a mother. This was enough to make him realize his mistake. Summary as we close for today. The Honorable Maulana said that if anyone intentionally invites thoughts of deen while engaged in salat, then it is allowed. Jaiz. If it does not concern deen, then it is disallowed to invite a thought during salat. But if it intrudes itself without his inviting it, then there is no harm. What you are expected to do is to try to keep your mind on what you recite in salat by your tongue. Recite thoughtfully. Summon back your attention. If you realize that your mind has digressed every time this happens, summon your mind back. If you are careful to do it, then inshallah you will have a very few involuntary interruptions. Whatever thoughts intrude will not harm you. May Allah protect us from evil suggestions and temptations. May He enable us to act on what we have learned. Ameen.
Social expectation drowns us all inside. What you have should be what I want, 'cause what I have just ain't alright. The clothes I wear, the way I comb my hair, how I live, oh I don't care. This is who I am, this is me. Nothing, everything, can't you see?